know the end goal, that end goal might change, right? The destination may change. It may keep evolving, but know, what am I trying to achieve? Where am I trying to get to? And that's what brings the drive, because I'm a big commitment over motivation person. So if I know where I'm trying to get to, I'm committed. I'll run through brick walls to get there. If I'm just motivated, then like if I don't really know where I'm trying to get to, I got an idea that, oh, I want to get sort of over there. Then as I have a bad day, my results go down because I'm like focused on the bad day. And then if I have a good day, oh, this is good. And then a bad day, your motivation goes up and down with results. So to get away from that, know where you're trying to get to with clarity. Like I know I want to score this many goals or get this many points or get to this revenue number, hit this profit number, this average transaction, or like know the number, know the destination, and then you're committed. I'm Greg Forzani with Forzani Business Education, and this is the More Profit, Less Stress podcast, where we provide insights for more profit and less stress in your business now with the purpose of turning it into a valuable asset. Welcome to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. I am Greg Forzani, and my guest today is Chad Hewlett from Energy Equine and Synergy Equine. Chad's been a guest before, but we were having an interesting conversation the other day where Chad said something, and I'm like, hit the brakes. We actually have to have a podcast about that. Before we get into that, Chad, tell us a little bit about Energy and Synergy Equine. Where you're located? What does the business do? How big of a geographic area do you service?
So Nancy and I are fortunate enough to have two equine-only sports medicine practices, one on the north side of Calgary and one on the south side of Calgary. Airdrie and DeWinton are two little small towns that are just right next to a major metropolitan area. We service about probably 200K on a regular basis, and then all of Western Canada as far as like remote people haul in, some US customers. Yeah, there's 11 veterinarians now, and there's 37 of us that work there, support staff, stuff like that.
And I think what I kind of see as cool is, so you're a equine vet, however, you like to, I guess, for lack of better words, and I don't mean any disrespect to horses here, but see horses as athletes, right? Like there's a lot of equine athletes, and your kind of specialty is saying, hey, if you have an equine athlete, we want that athlete to perform at its absolute peak and thrive, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. If there was a word that we wanted to own, it would be soundness. Does that make sense? Like that soundness of body, mind, like all the things that come with it. We want to work on the soundness of a horse. So yeah, that would be our word to own.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get into reason we want to do this podcast today. Was we were talking the other day and we were having a session, and you brought up a little story, and maybe bring that up real quick, and that'll lead into what made me go, hey, it'd be a good topic to do a podcast on.
Yeah. We've been fortunate. We've had coaching with you for the last year this time, and then we did a few years before that. So I love the fact that when we have coaching sessions, there's always an agenda as far as things go. But inside of that, you and I just kind of, sometimes we free fall into a little rabbit hole for a bit. And so part of that rabbit hole was just kind of talking about life in general and how it kind of moves along. And I think I'm very lucky to have been in a profession that I've loved from day one. I've never felt like I chose the wrong thing to do or I was working for money. I've always felt like I was working on a passion, and I was rewarded really well for that. I've always felt that way overwhelmingly, 90% of the days. And so we talked a little bit about just getting things into a position. Sometimes when you're growing things or you have a target in mind, you get consumed by it a little bit. And in the world that we live in now, we talk a lot about this work-life balance. And, like you say to yourself, am I over here doing things with my kids? And then, did I take my wife on a date night? And did I all these other things? And then it's like next thing you know, you're like, well, I worked 70 hours this week and I spent 2 hours with the kids. But to the other side of that argument, I think a better description for true work-life balance is having priorities and knowing that sometimes you're going to spend more time on one priority, right? Like work's going to be a big deal for X number of hours a week. And then there's going to be weeks where you're going to go skiing with your family and you're not going to do any work that week, right? Like I think, and being able to put that in the right perspective, I think helps a bunch, right? Because
that's
every now and then,
great way to put it.
Yeah. And there's always these little signals in life, and part of the reason that I think it came up for me again is I had a signal, and we talked about it, where I had a close friend. They were actually we were talking about this, client number 3 when I went on my own. They were my third client.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think the clinic's got about 8,000 clients from where we came, and they
So
were
that was
trying
a
to go
long
through.
time ago.
Yeah, it's 20 years ago, and
Wow.
they were my third client, and just found out that she had cancer, and 6 weeks later she was crossing over to the other side. And as we get a little further down the runway, I think we start to see those things as like, is that a signal for me? Like you say to yourself, like, is there
Yeah.
something? There's something in the fire for me. I mean, not greedily, but just like where it is. And so it's always good to like take those reminders and sort of back up a little bit. And, for me, I feel like we're right where we should be. Spending time, we're just discussing, like with kids. Saturday, I played golf with the two older boys, and we went down. You'll love this. So I won't get far on this, but so we go down to Canada Olympic Park. You know where that
Yeah.
is, right? Where the
Yeah.
88 Olympics were. And they've repurposed that. Now all these downhills in Canada, I don't know about in the US, but they're building these summertime things where they can leverage their assets. Like, so they have this ski hill and it's only open for like 4 or 5 months real solidly. Now they're putting in these summertime things where you can carry your mountain bike up. Well, anyway,
Yep.
COP, they put in a downhill gravity driven golf, like a cart, and you sit on it and it just has a little steering wheel, and these things go about 40K. And
Sorry, like a golf cart?
Yeah, but it's like a little free flowing cart that you sit in. It doesn't have an engine. It's just driven by the downhill, and you pull it to the middle and it goes fast, and then you pull it all the way back and it starts to brake, and you're doing these switchbacks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So is this one with the off-road wheels?
These
Like
are
on
all
dirt or on asphalt?
these are straight asphalt. I've seen the
Okay.
dirt ones too.
I
But
went
anyway,
on I went on the asphalt one you're talking about in Mont Tremblant when I lived in Quebec in the mid 90s. Those are awesome. They're fun.
ridiculously
Except when you
fun.
bump into slow traffic, it's like, get out of the way.
Yeah, well, they put all the, because you're going downhill, they put some cool switchbacks, and so
Right.
the boy, like, that's what Chet wanted to do for his 23rd birthday. I was
Right.
like, yeah, sign me up, I'll go. And so we go do that, and of course,
But you're like the dad that's like, I ain't going to let you win, by the way.
sure as hell. Like, so, and of course, these guys have been a few times, and it was all males, so they're full of testosterone, more so than even more than me. And so they're like balls to the wall, going 40K, and I'm not, and they're passing me, and of course I'm like, fuck, you're gonna pass me. I'm like, I'm gonna get in here, right? So by the fourth one, the wheels were starting to slide a little bit, and I was like,
Yeah.
hey, it's peak season right now, and if I come off this thing and beat my body up a little bit and break something, I won't be able to work for 6 weeks. So they're like, oh, Dad, we want to go again. I'm like, good, I'll buy. And they're like, you're not having fun. I'm like, no, I'm having too much fun. And I said, if I go, I'm a little nervous that you guys keep beating me and it's bothering me. I said, so I'm just gonna watch. And so I bought tickets for them and sat at the bottom of the hill and watched. And I had as much, like, anyway, it all worked out. And then we went and played golf afterwards, and then we went and had supper at Five Guys, and basically doing what they wanted to do. Yeah.
Very cool. I think you're right. There's a whole lot of, as we were talking before off camera, like there's a lot of books and seminars and TED Talks and whatever, and teachings about work-life balance. And it's great. I love the concept. I buy into the concept. However, I think, and you'd said something interesting earlier about this, but I think it's the definition of what is work-life balance. Like, how do you view that? And what kind of makes me sad is I see some people go, there's this black and white thing, and it means that I got to now work 25 or 30 hours a week and go play the rest of the time. Which of you've earned the right for that? And I would love to get into this. Let's fast forward. We'll get into the conversation of how you earn the right. Let's pause that for a minute. But if you've earned the right, then it's great. But if you haven't earned the right, then while you're enjoying the time while you're not working, you're super stressed because you can't pay your mortgage or your rent or your car payment, or in the business, you can't pay your staff, or you can't, pay your vendors, or whatever that looks like. That's not work-life balance when you're working 30 hours, but you're not making enough money to pay the bills. I don't think that's work-life balance. That's just adding stress in your non-work hours. You're far better off investing that time in work hours to get it financially figured out, lower that stress, and then you can earn the right to go do that.
Yeah. It seems so straightforward to me, and I feel like we probably had similar upbringings. I think you grew up more in the city, and I grew up more on the farm. But in the sense of how it all comes together, it's like I don't feel like it forced any business solutions. You guys went out and played first, and then you came home when you worked. Like at my place, if my dad if I came home from school and he caught me in front of the TV, that it was a bad deal. Does that make sense? Like there's chores and shit to be done outside. When we were all done with it, we came in the house and we watched a couple hours of TV and we enjoyed each other, right? But work came first, and you enjoyed the pleasure because you put the time in order to earn the right to sit down, right? And so and I'll try to stay on track, but like, if you look a little bit at some of the Judeo-Christian culturism, let's don't just talk about, do you believe in God or not? No, yeah, that's fine. Like you can or you can't. And we all have our different thoughts on that. But, like I can tell you, I know, right? I don't remember the verse to the day, but it's like, when God was making the earth, he worked 6 days and then he took the seventh day to rest. So I think the position of that can come however you want. I don't remember reading in the Bible that he's like, it's a 4-day work week. I can't work today because it's my day off. That wasn't in there, right? Does that make sense? Like,
no, wait, there's a new version. Now it's a 4-hour work week.
Yeah. So it's like, and you can, and stop me if I get too far, because I'm not trying to make this religious. That's not what I'm here for at all. I think we all have our own philosophical beliefs though, and inside of there, there's just quite a bit of that was around like, hey, I'm, like when they fell out of grace in the garden, part of the thing is like, hey, you had this beautiful garden, you ate from the tree of the fruit and knowledge and whatever, and so now there's going to be some suffering, right? And I wish we didn't use that word suffering, because it really doesn't sit well with this modern woke this woke culture that we live in, because they can't look past suffering. Well, suffering isn't that bad. It's like, actually, you do that all the time. But, it's like, if you have to suffer for a little bit to have more, well, isn't that a good thing? Then you
gotta earn it.
What you got. Yeah, you appreciate what you got. So I think when we sit down to enjoy a great, like Nance and I love wine. Like we don't drink a lot, but we drink really nice Italian wine, and we have a bottle that's like $45 or $50 a bottle. I don't even think about the price, because I'm like, I don't drink a lot, and when I do drink a glass or two of wine, I want it to be really good. So this is the kind I'm going to drink. And so that's where I'm at, right? So doing that is sort of like, it feels good, but I know I've earned the right to have that bottle of wine versus like drinking a shitty one because I didn't want to earn it, right?
From a box made in powder.
Yeah. It's like, so then, like when I watch young people and we talk, and I think I can't remember if I've talked about this before, but I used to have a question inside of my interviews. They don't let me interview anymore, just so you know. I'm not a part of the interview process. And that's great, because Louisa does a brilliant job. But when I interviewed, especially young veterinarians, right, I had a question, and it came pretty early in the conversation. At your stage of life, if I offered you more money or more time off, what would you take?
Right.
By God, there was a right answer back in the old days. It was, I want more time. Well, you know what? I stopped asking it because every single person that I interviewed was like, more time off. And that's not their fault. I blame that on education. And I let that follow out, because when you think about it, if you're a young veterinarian or a young lawyer or a young doctor, unless you were unfortunate enough or fortunate enough to grow up on a farm where your parents beat that shit out of you, went to school when you're 4 or 5 years old, and they've been teaching you a socialistic system of like, well, yeah, like you should really make sure the cookie's divided into 7 pieces because there's 7 people at the table, and you shouldn't take that extra piece, and like, the bell rings and it's time. We start at 9 and we're done at 2. Like, where are they going to learn it, right? So they're being taught by people from the time they're 5 until they're 26 years old. And that's when you usually get out of vet school that don't work yourself to death. It's not worth it. And then you get some gray-haired guy that's redlining it that's like, yeah, it's really worth it. I was like, you're going to love this. It's going to be hard. It's going to be worth it. It takes a shift. So, yeah.
I think it's all good points. Fortunately, I guess, for whatever reason, the education system has taught people what you're talking about. That being said, I think that does mean for the entrepreneurial spirit, like the real true entrepreneurial spirit, there's a huge opportunity. And
crazy amounts of opportunity.
Exactly. So it's an opportunity to earn it, and then, create a culture in your team and hire people based on the same philosophy, or, make it all merit-based, right? Very recently, in the last few years, Elon Musk has said a lot of that merit-based language. I love that. I totally connect with that. But I think I do want to get into, so if we believe just to recap, work-life balance. I think maybe one more thing to add to that conversation. Let's talk how you earn it in a business. But I think, like, if it's something you love what you do, and we were talking off camera, but I use the reference of pro sports. I think if you went to any pro sports athlete, whether they're amateur or pro, that contradicts myself, but whether like Olympic, let's call them pro sports, they're amateur, I get it, but professional, let's call them professional athletes.
Professionals, yeah.
You go to any professional athlete and you go talk to them after they've just played like a game or an event or whatever it was where they left it all out there. And you said, what did that feel like? I got to think like they're going to say all sorts of words. Exhausted might be one word at the moment because they're exhausted after doing it. But I don't think any of them are going to say they were stressed. So if you talk the whole work-life balance, there's an example of an athlete leaves it all out in the court and they probably love it. Like, I think you and I talked, you play pickleball, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So I haven't told you this. I went out and played for the first time last week, very first time. And I played with 3 good players for 2.5 hours, my first time playing. So I think if you look at all pro sports, sorry, this is a sidebar for 2 seconds. If you look at all sports, I would argue hockey's probably the best workout. It's exhausting, right?
Sure is.
Of all the sports I played. I would say the second most is if you go play pickleball with 4 good players. Man, I was soaked.
Yes, ridiculous, isn't it?
Totally. I was sore for 3 days and I was sore from the waist down. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. Anyway, the point is I was exhausted. But I never used the word stressed. I didn't see it as being stressful, right? Because I was doing something I enjoyed. So I think with entrepreneurship and business ownership, if you're doing something you enjoy and you really know why you want it, if you want to build something that, provides for the family, allows you to earn the lifestyle you want to live, allows you to, and we'll get into systemize it so you can earn the right to not have to work 60 to 90 hours a week. And then you build an asset you can sell one day to live that retirement life you want to live or whatever it is. It shouldn't be stressful. It should be exciting and fun. And it's a competitive game. It's no different than sports. Entrepreneurs should be just like pro athletes. It's a competitive game, right?
Yeah. I would argue it's one of the few things, entrepreneurship, where you can literally be a professional athlete at any age, right? Like, when you think about hockey, you're going to miss your turn if you're not real good. By the time you're about 16 years old, you're done, right? Like, I watch like rodeo. Okay, so like rodeo, like you see the bareback riders, bronc riders, bull riders, they'll be going like, yeah, that guy's really old. He's 35. I'm like, God damn, he's not even halfway there. But they're like,
you're like, take that back.
Yeah, like I remember watching Billy Attenbauer, who's an American. I think he was 37 years old at his last NFR, right? And he got bucked off and he walking back to the rink and he looked like he was 70, like he was hurting, but he was 37 years old and they were calling him the old guy, right? Because all the other guys that were riding against him were, anywhere from 17 to 27 and in the middle of their peak. So, but from an entrepreneur standpoint, you think about, hopefully I quote this right, but like the Colonel from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Right.
He didn't really ring the bell until he was like, 54 years old or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's the nice thing about it is you can be in that elite league. And it's just a matter of like, as Jordan Peterson say, you need to be reasonably articulate and have an above average work ethic and be able to kind of, save, have some intelligence and be able to save back. And so that's a game anybody can play, right? You don't have to be, like you and I are both lucky, I think. You have a bachelor's degree, Greg? Did you
High
go to
school.
High school. Okay. Well, here we sit, right? Like, okay, on my left side of the screen is a high school graduate. On the right is a doctor. Well, we're both achieving incredible things in business, and it's not because I'm a doctor that I'm doing it. It's because of the other stuff, right? Does that make sense? Like, I think that's the cool thing about it is business levels that field right up. Like,
oh yeah,
like I know. Being here in Alberta as a well-educated doctor, I worked for several people that didn't even graduate from high school. And if I had their money, I'd light my money on fire. Does that make sense? Like they are ridiculously wealthy, but didn't even graduate from high school. So like it's kind of a cool professional thing when you can figure out how to provide a service for somebody. And you can, we were talking about the suffering before. You can sacrifice and be like, okay, well, I made, I don't know, $200,000. I'm going to live on 10 and I'm going to take the $190,000 and I'm going to surf it back into something so I can provide more service for another industry or keep doing the industry I'm in or whatever you decide to do. I think
Yeah.
that's where you're going. Is that right? Like, am I staying on the right path here?
Yeah. And
Okay.
I think just to add to that, your point, like I agree with all that. And I think to add to it is to say, like a business owner, you can achieve greatness in 10 years or less, like literally. So no matter when you start the game, if you get in when you're 50, you can still achieve greatness before you're 60,
Yeah.
which is really cool, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're saying. And from what I've seen in life, like working with clients or just past in the family business, yeah, in a 10-year window, you can achieve a lot. And you can actually achieve a lot in a 5-year window if you really, and that gets back to, work-life balance. How, if you want to achieve this, depending where you're at, do you want to take this long to get there or do you want to take that long to get there? And that's a personal choice. But I really, remember the old Pink, so you're my age. Remember the old Pink Panther movies back in the day?
Sure. Inspector
One,
Clouseau.
yeah. Remember the one where the bad guy would take the metal glove and scratch it down the chalkboard as a torture method?
Yeah.
Remember that? So for me, that sound is when people say, oh, well, I need work-life balance. I don't mind the word, but when they follow it by, I know I can't pay my bills and I know I know that person's struggling and they know they're struggling and they're like, well, I've read this book and I'm going work-life balance tomorrow and I'm only going to work 30 hours a week and let the chips fall where they fall. And I'm like, that's great. But just so you know, the chips are going to fall and you lose in your business, possibly your house, maybe your marriage. And in your non-work time, you're going to be stressed to the nines because you can't pay your bills. That's not work-life balance. That's crazy. That's people don't know any better selling some stupid ass dream.
Yeah. And being careful not to be judgmental because my wife would pass judgment on me and say that, oh, you're such a judgy guy. I'm like, I like to think of it as just critical. And she's like, well, it sounds
I'm
like
with
judgment.
you.
I'm like, well, I'm criticizing me and I'm criticizing the other people around me, not because I don't like them, but I'm just like, it's kind of like that word. It's like, well, I'm sorry, the truth hurts your feelings. It's not like I'm trying to be mean about it, but the truth's the truth, right? So I think sometimes from a psychological standpoint, and I'm no psychologist, right? I think sometimes we have to justify when we lose, right? Or
Yep.
when we're not winning. You see where I'm coming from? Like, so
Yep.
sometimes it's like, well,
It's a great perspective.
I could have started $1 million business, but I was really worried about my work-life balance. I'm like, yeah, really, but how about you tell us how you really failed instead of making an excuse? And so it's very judgy, right? But I know, like I've seen things too where, like you've made a decision already that you're not going to try for it. So then you use other things to do that. And so I think sometimes this could be used to where it's like, I could do that if I really wanted to work at it, but I don't really want to work at it that hard. So I'm just going to go for work-life balance. And that to me is like, that's unfortunate, right? Because, I tell people.
And it's a choice they get to make. They get to make
Right.
that choice. But maybe to your point, you get to make the choice, but you can't complain about it and say, well, they're lucky and I didn't get my chance. And like, you're not allowed to do both. Like if you make a choice and you're making it and you're kind of pretending you're having an excuse, but you make that choice, then you got to go down that path. Now you can always change. Like you said, cool thing with business is you can change your mind at any point and get on the racetrack and give her.
Yeah.
No age
weird.
is too old.
Yeah. It's weird. The harder I work, the luckier I seem to be. I don't know why. It's just like, it's, like it does. I tell that to people all the time. I'm like, yeah. And when we hire, we're just starting a new set. We're starting a new set.
That's a great saying. Sorry. That's a great saying.
Well, again, if it fucking hurts, I don't know what to tell you, right? Like, I'm sorry, right? Like, it's like sometimes we just got to rip the Band-Aid off, right? Like, and so, but it's like, we're starting a new set of interns and I'm super excited. We had 2 great ones this year. They're, one's going back to Australia. The other one I think she's going to North Carolina. I have a see her this week. But like when they started with us last year, I was like, I looked at them and I was like, this is going to be hard. And you could see they're like, why is this guy saying it? And then the very next breath, it came out of my mouth, but we'll make sure it's worth it, right? Because anything that you've ever had, didn't it cost something? So I was like, the next year is going to cost you, but by God, it's going to pay. So just get ready to put your all into this so that when you come out the other side, you're a hell of a lot better than when you went in. And let us help you, right? Like, it's like, you need to we just need more of that, right? Like I wish that's what
Yep.
they taught in school so that we would have this idea of like, like another one too is like parents. And I love this because you and I are both parents. And so between Nancy and I, we have 5 kids, right? And so I was talking to somebody the other day and they were talking about how they had 2 under 3. And they're like, how did you survive this? I was like, the long game? He's like, what do you mean the long game? Just think about this. Right now it sucks because one's because when they can't feed themselves or wipe their ass and you have to do everything for them, it's really tough. But when they get to be 5 or 6 years old and they can do all those things, and now there's 2 of them and they can play together, you get freedom. Because if you only
Right.
have one,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah.
give up, well, and Nance and I are a part of that now. Like when we went back the second time to have kids, I was 48, she was 38. And so Rowan's kind of an only child because there's 11 years. Well, I think we talked about, so we went off to San Diego for a vacation. Well, because there's only one of them, we had to pay to fly someone else's kid down there to spend the week with us because he don't want to spend that week with his parents, right? Like if he had a brother or sister, we would have been able to do that. It's not right or wrong. It's just like, so this whole thing with work-life balance, it's like you just said, it's like, well, if you don't invest any time on the front end, please don't bitch about the fact that you don't have any fun things to play with when you're in your 50s because you didn't sacrifice when you're in your 20s or your 30s. You just didn't.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just a rule, right? Like, so, but if you're banging away, like take our friend Elon, like he's an exceptional example, because he's going to be,
absolutely.
They're saying he's weeks away from being the first
Trillionaire.
trillionaire, weeks away, right? That guy, like when you listen to it, he's like, if everyone else is working 40 and I'm working 80, I'll get there at least twice as fast as they are. I don't know that we need to be quite that extreme. He's gives us the other extreme, right? But
he's the benchmark
of merit,
the farthest extreme.
Yeah, he would give you that far extreme of merit of like how merit is rewarded depending on where you invest it and how many times it multiplies. And so I think the same thing can be said of our social life too, though. Like we were just talking about the go-karts and all that sort of stuff and the golf. Well, I'm reaping the rewards with the texts back, like that was so fun. I'm sure glad you spent that time with us. Like you get all that too, right? But it's like, when do I go play golf? When do I do the karting? And when do I do all the work and put all the things together? I think that's the magic of it is like, don't be like, I spent 30 hours working this week, so I need to spend 10 hours with the kids. Well, maybe you only spend 5 with them this week, but do the 5, right? Like do the really good job of it. And then next week, maybe you spend 20 with them and you only work 30 as long as things are rolling along, I guess. I don't have it. I'm shooting a lot of words out here, but I don't have it figured out.
No, but I think if I can add to that, maybe if I can maybe articulate what you're saying a different way, because I think this is what you're trying to say, is like when I was in my 20s, got married, we had a child, got divorced pretty early, came to an agreement that we had joint custody, but our daughter lived with her mom. I didn't want to fight it because if I fought it, then they would hate me. And then so I just went with, but I get 100% joint custody. Yep. And then the deal was I got to go spend a week. I got to spend 1 week every month. And I'm getting to a point with the story here, but I got to spend 1 week every month living with them in Montreal. Like I'd fly out, spend 1 week in the house. That was part of the deal. And it was great. So I didn't get to spend a lot of time with my daughter when she was young, but I had a rule. When I was with her, I would be present in the moment. So to your point, if you're going to spend 5 hours, like don't just spend 10 to spend 10, like whatever hours you can spend them effectively. Right. So that was my rule. Had to be present in the moment when I was with her growing up. And it worked because it felt like we were spending more time together than we were. So I think that's your point. And that would go back to even work, right? Like work-life balance. You want to earn work-life balance. Be present in the moment when you're working. Be effective. Back to Elon Musk's merit thing, right? It's all the same kind of word. Effective, merit, whatever you want to be. Be present in the moment. And then when you're playing, be effective. Be present in the moment. When you're relaxing, be present in the moment. When you spend time with your kids, when you're on date night, whatever it is, be present in the moment in each hour. And then you'll earn that work-life balance. But you'll earn what you want in life too, right? That's...
Be full, be all... I think the term all in is what you're coming from. And I think that's what I was trying to say too, is like when we were out there on Saturday with those golf carts or those carts going downhill, I was not somewhere else. I was only with those boys riding down that hill. When we were playing golf, same thing. It's like I was just with them. And this morning when I was knocking out a couple of horses, the phone was set down. I was just with horses, right? And just with my
Yeah.
team and doing those things. And I think that's if we were to come to a gist, if we did more of that, you'd feel the balance, I think, right? And,
Yeah.
because then
I agree totally. And
like,
even you're just making me think of something. You just said you were with the horses. And I know from my knowledge, you're one of like the most reputable equine vets maybe in the country. And there's probably a varied reasons why, but one big reason is something you just said. When you're with the horses, you were with the horses. You weren't thinking about 14 other things at once. And that makes you more effective, right? And then when you're learning how to do new procedures or, how to evolve technology and things with dealing with horses, you're probably present in the moment learning that thing, not thinking about 14 other things. And that's actually an interesting point. You're making me think here. Probably another way to define work-life balance is what we're saying. Be present in the moment, be all in what you're doing, and you get better traction and results in that moment in what you're doing, which will make you better at the thing, whatever it is, whether it's servicing a customer, whether it's, if you're a chef cooking, if it's so we have friends of ours that they have a side business they're starting to grow, which is coffee. And he's one of those guys. He's all in when he does something. Yeah. And it is the best coffee ever. And now he just started doing rubs and spices. And he just brought some over on the weekend and we open them up. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm foaming at the mouth to try them on the smoker because I open them up and smell them. And they're like imagine you grew up on a farm. So imagine growing all your own stuff. And I know you and Nancy are into eating as healthy as you can and growing as much as you can. So just imagine making like a rub from all that stuff that you went and picked either off your own land or in the forest and, not processed, like it smells like whoa, boom. I was like, holy crap. But because when he's making those spices, he's all in. So he's going to make the best product. And he didn't have very much time. So it's not necessarily sometimes about the time. It's about being all in. And if you do that, then you can lead to work-life balance because you're just getting the most results from all areas of your life, I think.
Yeah. Then that leads back to how we got this podcast kind of came to start. It was like through the death of a client that I knew really well. I think if you know that you sucked as much out of every moment that you had, would you have any regrets? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
I think that's part of it is if you end up working a job that just pays money and you don't really like it, then you got paid really well, but all you can think about is when you're going to get to the weekend and you're going to get on your boat and get on the house. All you're thinking about is what's coming. You're not actually participating in what you're doing, I think, right? So I think that's a big part of it is if you're spending a lot of time on what you want to do.
I love it. You're making me think two things. One, like I grew up in a family that played professional sports and then took that whole kind of no different than growing up on a farm, right? I know from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, growing up on a farm and playing pro sports or whatever, like those are totally different things. But in fact, they're kind of not. They're very similar in their attitude, right? You got to earn it. You got to have merit. You got to do the hard work to reap the benefit, all that stuff. It's a very similar sort of environment. So then they got into business and they took that pro sports mentality into business. And at the time in the mid to late 70s, that was unique to the business world. You got very few people were doing it at that time. Like they just brought a different twist to business and saying, we're going to treat it like pro sports. And there was a mantra through the whole company the whole time I was there for 25 or 30 years. And the mantra was work hard, play hard, earn it, like work hard, play hard, be all in whatever you're doing. And that's cool. Like I remember we were in our, even in our young 20s, we were in that office and there's like 220 people in the office and we'd work hard all day. And then 7 o'clock at night, work till like 7 o'clock at night. And a bunch of us would, when we're done, like go out in the back in the warehouse or whatever and pick up hockey sticks and play hockey in the back, or do shit like that. So work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
But what you're saying and what sparked me is I often do think, like to your point about no regrets, like you brought that up. I often think about that nowadays because as we're getting older, you're seeing friends get cancer, ailments or whatever and pass away. And I keep thinking to myself, like, do I have any regrets? Like if I look back in time, and I've always lived a life of try to work hard, play hard. And I think because of that, I don't have any regrets. Like I've lived an awesome life. I've done so many things, so many cool experiences, and I'm not done. That's not at all what I'm saying. But I think that's kind of what you're trying to say. Like if you're all in, you won't look back and have regrets. So then for every person, that work-life balance is kind of defined differently. Like, I don't know. I personally, I love experiences. Like I always look for really cool experiences. And then that kind of fulfills me, so to speak, whether it's traveling or like Sandra and I have been to some odd places for traveling with some funny stories,
Well,
but it
that's
makes
good.
it cool, right? And you look back and go,
Yeah.
that's great. No regrets.
Yeah, no,
Totally agree.
and it's, we can look at it in many different ways. Like on the screen, it's a focusing wheel that's just made out of those flowers or whatever that's behind me there. And that, if we kind of get to that, because we talked Christian before, let's just talk Buddhism, because like I said, I have an appreciation for all the religions that are out there based on how it all comes about. But one of the things they talk about is just like the secret to life is like, did you kind of suck all the juice out of every moment? Meaning, were you in that moment, right? Because
Right.
so often we're somewhere else, right? And so then it's like, well, like, yeah. And I'm famous for saying this, because if I'm working, especially, not so much when I'm playing, but if I'm working and I'm working with somebody, and and they're not with me, I'll stop and I'll be like, hey, like, we're working on a 1,000-pound animal here today.
Yeah.
Couple of things. We're not hurting a horse because we're not here, and I don't want you hurting me or you. So how do we get you here? Because you're somewhere else. And then,
Yeah.
and so we start the day with a huddle sometimes, so that I can look them in the eye and be like, they're not with me. And it's not like, in the old days, I'd be a little bit pissed off or frustrated. Now I'm kind of like, hey, there's a reason they're not here. We have all these people that want to be here. Why don't I just take 30 seconds and talk to them away from the group and be like, hey, you're not here today. Is there something up? Is your mom sick? Did your boyfriend leave you? Did your dog get killed? Like, what is it that's happening? Because you're not doing this on purpose, but you're not here. And so then
Yeah.
I think we almost need that like, not need, but I feel like it's one of those things where we almost need an app, because we have a goddamn phone that does all these other things to distract us. But it's like, it keeps hitting you on the side of the head and being like, hey, you're supposed to be playing, your son's playing football and you're thinking about what you're going to do after work, like,
Right.
how come you're not
Yeah.
playing football with him? Like, you almost need that.
Yeah.
Like, where are you at? Because, like, look at how beautiful this moment is, and you're thinking about another moment that's not even here or did happen, and so, yeah, without getting into a philosophical rabbit hole, I think everything we're talking about is like, just be present, and then there'll be complete work-life balance, or complete balance in your life, if you just live those moments. And so, yeah.
You're making me think, yeah, you're super insightful. You're making me think, I don't know. I'm going to probably get in trouble by somebody listening to this right now, but this ADD, ADHD thing, I get it. There are some medical things going on with people that causes that, and I understand that. But I do also believe that the majority of those people are checked out. They don't take pride in what they do, and maybe they don't care about the thing they're doing. So I think, one, you got to have a passion for what you're doing. But two, this for me in a hiring process, number one thing, I will never hire somebody that doesn't take pride in what they do. You've got to take pride in what you do, or I ain't hiring you. Which then goes back to, like, someone's working on a horse, or they're with a customer, or they're, making spices, or whatever it happens to be. If you take pride in what you do and you're passionate about it, then, like, wow, you got magic. That's like, then someone's like, a bomb could go off beside them. They're not going to get distracted. But if they don't take pride in what they do, and they're not passionate about the thing they're doing, then they're in their head thinking about who knows what. Like great example, you just said about watching your kids' games. Like, I honestly, and I know this, so back to, now I'm hearing your wife saying, I'm going to sound judgmental here, but if you're watching your kid's game and you're checked out, are you shitting me? Like, those moments are very short in life. And those are, as parents, those are pretty cool moments. And you're checked out. That means either, like, I don't know what's wrong with that. But now I get it. If you got some stress going on in your life, that's like, you can't pay your mortgage and it's going through tomorrow, or, someone at your office just got cancer. I totally understand that. But just generally speaking, if you're checked out all the time and stuff like that, like, I don't know, man, I think that person's got to look in the mirror and say, like, what do I want out of life? And what do I want to, like, I don't know, what do I want to be proud about? Right? If you take pride in what you do, and you do that in everything, you're always going to succeed. You're always going to have great relationships with people, and you're going to get the most out of life, right? You just take pride in what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's an interesting conversation. I do think that the more time you can spend like the old birds of the feather flock together too. If you have people that are holding you accountable and you're the sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with,
Yeah.
I didn't make these rules up, but I tell you what, when you just live by them, they do work, right? You're in the business, and our old friend Jim Rowan, right? Like if you go back to the 80s when he's like talking about all these things, everything
Yeah.
that you and I have talked about today, your coaching program, all the things that go with that. There's a certain amount of that, like, just that, where are you at? What are you doing? Like, and then just looking at it and critically being like, is that what I really wanted to do? Or is it bringing me closer to what I want to be? Or is this actually taking me further away from what I want to be? And I think, because I can hear him saying that, Jim Rowan, in his old tapes from the 80s. And he said,
Yeah.
like, but we don't always ask ourselves that, especially in a distracted world where the next video comes up, or
Right.
there's a bunch of those
And
things.
this thing's trying to pull you away and distract you, right? It's just
Yeah, well,
like you put it
yeah,
away and you're focused on something, and it's over here going ding ding. I got this really
yeah, you
stupid
got it.
video you can watch about this stupid stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I only turn the notifications on when I'm on the call, right? Because the rest of the time I don't want to know how many times it dings until I want to pick
Yeah.
it up, because
Yeah.
it's so distracting, and it's a tool, as all the other things are too, right? So yeah, I think if we just live that moment that we're in, as we keep coming back to that, then it would be so much easier to watch the hockey game when your kid's playing, because you would feel fulfilled that you'd already taken the time for yourself. You looked
Yeah.
after everybody else, and you looked after yourself, and now you're at the hockey game or the football. Like for me, it's part of the reason that I wanted to coach the flag NFL football is not because I needed one more thing to do. It was like, no, I don't want to miss the Sundays, right? Because he's playing flag football for 8 Sundays, and I know I'm going to struggle to make it all 8 of them. But if I'm the coach and I have a little bit
Have
more
to be there.
responsibility, yeah. And then when he's playing, I'm out there, and I don't coach him per se. There's 3 other coaches, so they coach Rowan, because we all know how that works when you try to coach your own kid. It doesn't end
No.
well. Since he's the 5th one, I feel like I should know that by now. I still don't sometimes. I feel like, so, but I'm out there. It forces me to be there and to be present, because I'm on the field with 10 little kids running around. I can't be somewhere else. I got to be right with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus like going and sitting in the chair and being like, oh wow, did Rowan catch the football? Oh yeah, look at that. Somebody texted me. Like I did not want to be that. I didn't
And
want to
there's
be
a
that.
dumb video. Oh, and then there's another dumb video.
Yeah, as my kids playing football, and I won't
Yeah.
get that back.
Exactly.
Like, so
Yeah.
then it makes me I can't have my phone in my hand when I'm coaching, and just little things like that. And then, and coming back as another thing, I don't know a person that has ADHD. I'm sure I do. I've never been diagnosed. Actually, I should, though, because the Liberals would pay me and give me a tax receipt if I did. And the NDP in Canada, if I went and got diagnosed, I would be able to get something like $15,000 back or something, some ridiculous bullshit
You're shitting me,
in Eastern
right?
Canada. No, I'm not. I kid you not. Like, anyway, I'll stop. I'm gonna stop because I got the wrong attitude. So anyway,
Yeah.
I have this ADHD, and I'm pretty sure I've had it my whole life. But I find that working out in the morning, I listen to other people, and they're like, what's the best thing for ADHD is do a workout first thing in the morning. Like, make yourself tired. You know what I mean? Like, because then it comes back to like, well, maybe we were supposed to have that because we were supposed to get our ass up and go out and kill something, or farm, or do something, not go to the refrigerator and pick it out. I'm not saying stop that, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason we have ADHD, is because it's not actually a problem. It's a problem that we've created because we were supposed to do something. And then
Right.
anyway, and I also learned this, or it came up, this thing called binaural beats. Have you heard of it before? It's like, it's super
Huh.
cool. All these
Oh, you
kids
told
for
me about it,
studying.
actually.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
studying, right?
Yeah.
So I listened to the one that's supposed to help ADHD whenever I'm working on the computer. I was a big doubter, but now I listen to that shit all the time. I'm like, holy moly, this is working, especially when I have 2
That's
hours
cool.
in an office and I struggle to sit down. But it comes back to what you said before. I could either find a way or make an excuse. And I'm not
Yeah.
much into this making excuse of things. Every time I find myself making one of those, I'm like, yeah, that's because you didn't find a way, right? And then that hurts a little bit. Again, it's the truth. You either find a way or you
Yeah.
find an excuse. The binaural beats have helped me out to get a little bit more
That's cool. Very cool.
stuff done when I'm not moving, right? Because,
Yeah.
and you know this, when we have meetings, I'm the first guy, like 10 minutes in, I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm sorry, I got to get up and move around. And they're probably thinking, what's wrong with Chad? But like, I get up, I walk around the room a little bit,
Yeah.
still focused on what's happening. But if I walk around the room for a little bit, then I'm like, I'm getting this meeting's meaning more to me, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
being more present. So again,
I got one of those
I don't know.
desks that goes up and down now, so I can do that. I can raise the desk
Standing.
and stand, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. I love it.
Yeah. What
It's
is that? They said sitting.
what a great idea.
Yeah, sitting's going to kill more people in the 21st century than smoking did in the 20th, they say, right?
Makes
From the
sense.
standpoint of like,
I get it.
from the
I
standpoint of
totally
like
get it.
the disease process, right?
Totally get it.
Yeah.
So I need to go back to something you were talking about earlier about watching your son's, well, now you're coaching your son's football game, but whether it's watching, coaching, whatever it is, that work-life balance thing, I don't want to lose the point of, like, I think I want to put more emphasis on the point about you earned the right to be able to choose when you want to take those moments. Like because I know in the winter, sometimes you'll take like a Tuesday or something and you'll go snowboarding with the kids. But you've earned the right to be able to do that when you want, because you were present in the moment, took pride in what you did, grinded when you needed to grind, but got through that tough phase of not being able to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. You got through that. Now you got a company that's successful. You can do that. And now you just, you systemize your company, you bring people in to help you, and it allows you to decide how many hours you want to work hard in those hours, earn it. But I think for anybody listening, like, let's not lose that point. I believe this to my core. A business is a tool to help you earn the life you want to live. It is like it is.
Yeah.
Flat out. And everybody gets to decide what that is. That's their choice. But I just on my hands and knees plead people, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, seize the opportunity and earn the life you want to live. Like, it's not hard. You can grind it out for just a couple of years to get yourself to a point where you can then pick your speed, how hard you want to work. But if you just get it to that profitable part, then you've earned the right to choose. And not everybody's prepared to do that, which is cool. That's the opportunity, right?
Yeah. No, and you're very right about that. And then, in our deal, we have a season, right? And I think most businesses do, and I'm pretty sure it's you that told me this, that like most successful businesses don't turn a big profit every single month. You have insane seasons where, like, when you were at Sport Check, it was like Christmas. I'm pretty sure that probably paid for
Christmas in July. Yep. If you miss one, you might make money. If you miss both, you're done.
Yeah, that's right. And so our deal is like things they start to get strong in the middle of March, and they just stay real strong right through until the middle of October. And so I say to our young people all the time, I'm like, that's the way the game is set up. So we can either play by those rules or not play by them. Every day that you take, every extra day that you don't work in the middle of the summer, I'll just use this as a number. I'm not saying this is the real number, but I try to make it to where it's like, if I take a day off in July, it's worth $15,000, let's just say.
Right.
And there's all these people that are wondering where I'm at and why I can't fix their horse. If I take one off in January, it costs $200 and nobody gives a shit because they're not riding their horse.
Yeah.
They're doing
except the
other
person
things.
behind you at the lift line at the ski hill.
Yeah. So it's like, I said,
you're like, oh, what's he doing here today?
It's like if you make $200,000 a year and you work those hours and you take the whole winter off, do you really care? Right? It's a framing, right? Because sometimes we get in our head, it's like, if I don't get to take a day off in July, am I getting my work-life balance? I'm like, I don't know. I can't answer that for you, because I know my work-life balance rolls around that, and I'm going to take my regular weekends through the summer, and we're going to go home this year because America turns 250 years old. This will be the first time I've missed the Ponoka Stampede and the beginning of the Calgary Stampede in 31 years, right? This shit's happening then, right? Like, that is the peak of our season. Well, I'm 58 and it's America's 250th birthday. So I'm like,
and that's not going to happen again in your lifetime.
So that's not going to,
you're not going to get to the 500th birthday.
Yeah, I'm not going to get to 500. So, and my parents are still alive too, right? Like, so it's like, I want to go home and spend it with them. So, but I mean, if I was in my second year of practice, I might still do it, but it'd be a big, thinking about the way I thought, because I never skipped those other ones because I'm like, well, mom and dad know that I'll come home and see them in August. right? We're going to get to spend
Right.
10 days together because in the middle of July, I would have been home for like 5 or 6 and been worried about what was happening, right? Like, because I knew I was leaving some things in the lurch. So we'll go home for 10 days in August and have a more relaxed vacation, take all our kids, do all the things we want to do and spend 10 days with them versus trying to jam on it and be like, oh yeah, this is happening. This is happening. I wonder if anything's blown up. That's not work-life balance either. But
Yeah.
now we're at a point where, they're not going to miss me. I'm going to be honest, right? Like, we've got some great people around us. Ryan's going to pick up the first 5 days. Travis is going to pick up the last 5 days. Travis is going to be in Panoka, and they're doing such a good job that there won't be any phone calls, and it'll be great.
Nice.
But that's that whole thing of like, coming home at 3:00 from school and making a decision to be in front of the TV for 2 hours or be out in the barn for 2 hours and get all the stuff done while the daylight was still out, right? Because you can do things in the dark, but usually in the dark, things go, it takes twice as long to get things done, right? So that's what my dad was trying to teach me. It's like, no, daylights are burning. Let's get the things done, and then we'll get to rest more when it's dark. We can watch TV. Let's don't watch TV while the sun's shining. And so I think in our life, for our business, if you do enough front end sacrifice, or how about we call it investment? That's a term that sounds way better.
That's a good word.
Sacrifice sounds like you're Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
Investment sounds like you're Elon Musk. And so it's like, maybe that's the term we need to start using. So it tastes more like sugar than salt, right? Because salt sounds like it's going to be bitter. But actually it's not. I think it's really sweet to think about it. It's like, hey, I did these things a while ago and I'm getting these things today because I did that thing, right?
Yeah.
And, again, I know this when you've heard of this before. They were talking about those kids when they were really little. They did a psychology study where they did the marshmallow thing. Have you heard this?
I believe
They took
so.
little
Keep
kids,
going.
They were like 4 or 5. They were 4 or 5 years old. And what they did is the study is they're like, hey, you get a choice. You can go over and sit there and play with these cards or something. I don't know, some sort of duty. Or you can have a marshmallow. And the little kids, they weren't told that if they went over and played for a little bit, they'd actually get 2 when they were done, right? So what they were trying to figure out is like, they said you get 2 if you go and play, you'll have 2 or 3 marshmallows. If you take the 1 marshmallow right now, that's all you get. And I think where I'm going with this is like, as parents or as business leaders, I think sometimes it's good for us to try and help people, coach them or culture them to be like, I know you're going to go over and do this really difficult thing right now, but there's this reward that's going to come to you at the end. And sometimes it's maybe you're just a better person because of it. It's like another one of those Jim Rohn things is like, do you want to start a business because you just want to make money? Or do you actually want to start a business because of what you could potentially become as a person? Because you and I both know, like, I'm a hell of a lot different person now that I've been an entrepreneur than I was before. And I think I'm a better person because of all the things I've had to learn to do, i.e., like when my wife said, I really want to get that refrigerator. And I was like, can't wait to help you. Versus like, that's a really dumb idea. Like that's a thing that I think comes from being an entrepreneur is like, or being in business or having these struggles is like, maybe I'm just becoming a better person. And at the same time, well, guess what? I made a few $1 million, right? And my pile's a little bigger and I can go do these other things, but hopefully we're better people, right?
Yeah.
So
agree totally. Well said. Very well said.
Yeah, I'm getting all philosophical on you, Greg. I'm sorry.
No, it's
We're
great.
supposed to be doing a business podcast, and here I am talking about humans.
No. I think it's awesome. I think the message does need to be talked about, and I think business owners do need to learn that. It's super important. No, it's awesome. Very on point. Love it.
Yeah, I think that's up to us as cultural leaders. What is that? Something about the floor too, right? Like there's the ceiling and then there's the floor. And the ceiling is like all the things we're reaching for, right? And we're always, as in a family that you grew up in with sports and stuff like that, I think we talk a lot about the ceiling. Like, did you see that great pass? Or like, look at how big that tractor is, or like how much we got accomplished today. But the other side of it that I've heard about, and I think I've started watching it is like, what's the floor though? Like, what will you accept that's not good enough? Or, like, is below your floor. Will you go below your floor if you catch, I don't know, I'm trying to think of on the sports sides, but let's just say like you know in order to catch that touchdown pass that you need to be in the gym every single morning from 6 to 7. I think that's one thing we want to teach people inside of businesses is like, hey, the floor means that if there's a piece of garbage laying around, I'm going to pick that up, not walk by it because I'm going to a $10,000 appointment. It's at the same time, like, is the building clean? Did I do my part? I think that's something that
It's
I could
kind
do
of
better
for
with.
me. Yeah, for me, it's, I don't know. I guess it's because back to something you said earlier today, we're the product of our environment. So they say the average of the 5 people you spend, or the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And maybe because I grew up in that environment with a competitive family or whatever, for me, what you're saying, the way I think of it is just constant improvement. No matter what it is, constant improvement. Can I make that better or improve at that thing, which would include walking down the street, seeing garbage and going, can I make this better? Right? Pick up the garbage, put it in the garbage can, which then kind of, without sounding too judgmental, there are certain cities in the world where the bulk of the population doesn't have that attitude, and therefore the city looks like shit. Garbage everywhere.
I would say, yeah, well, so the floor for me is like, if you looked at the cities, and we'll talk about a few of them because it's out there, but like we're struggling with it in Alberta and Edmonton. Like there was actually a video that just came out. Is Edmonton actually the worst city in Canada to live in? Well,
really?
When you yeah. Now, if it beats Vancouver, it's damn sure dropped through the floor, right? If it beats Vancouver, like when we went to San Diego for the first time since COVID, I called home and I was like, said to Nancy, I was like, yeah, I got to share the sidewalk with 600 of my closest homeless friends.
California's lost.
It's
lost.
It's public property. You can't live there, right? So it's like that's what we mean by the floor. And we're getting into like one of those things, but as a culture of, what is it, 20, how many people live in California? 40 million or something like that. They must have a critical mass of those people that are willing to be like, it's okay to live on the sidewalk, even though that's for all of us and you're not supposed to live there. That's okay. And it's okay for you to do these things, right? If we bring that back to entrepreneurs, I think that's where it comes from, is like, if you're like, well, I'll just cut corners to make more money, that's not so good. Does that make sense? Like that's a judgment on the entrepreneur. And I think that's where Jim Rohn was trying to come from, is like, it'll either show your good characters or the things that you need to get better at, right? And so I think that's where we can help our employees, our people that we're lucky enough to work with. And, with the interns, I said that I'm going to promise you this is going to be hard because it's going to be worth it. And so I think if we can continue to signal that for people, then they'll enjoy the process of cleaning a barn, not just for a clean barn, but for a clean barn, but also because I'm the kind of person that likes a clean barn and I expect a good environment, and the people that are around me will see me as a good example, I guess. Sometimes they see me as a bad example, and hopefully that's way less, like, what's that saying? Someone said to me one time, Chad, you're sure a good example of what not to do. Well, that's not what I want to be. That makes sense. Let's don't be that person. Let's be the person of like, God, I really want to be more like Chad, or I want to be more like Greg. I think as business owners, hey, how do we get back to where more people would want to be a business owner because they see how high your floor is and how high your peaks are, right? In the sense of like, that Greg, he can't hardly walk past a piece of trash. I really love that about him. I wish I had more of those qualities, right? Like, I think as business owners, it would be nice if we could see that instead of, because sometimes we're in that complaining mode of like, I do all these things, or how do I get more out of these people? Well, and someone said to me, they're not a piece of wind that you're sucking all the wind out of them. It's like, how do you inspire them to be more than they are versus how do you work them more to get more out of them, right? Like, we don't want that. I never wanted that. I might have said that, and then I'm like, shit, that's the wrong way to phrase that, because I wouldn't want somebody to say that to me. It's like, I don't want my clients to walk up and be like, how do I get more out of Chad? Like, hopefully they're like, God damn, that guy's giving me everything he's got. I love coming here. I'm going to tell all my friends to come as well, right? So I think those are,
In summary, what I would say to all that is, the cliche saying, there's something in the water. I wish there was a way I could take like a little bottle of pride and go pour it in all the water systems around the world. Because if we could just get everybody to step up their pride level, which is raise their floor, raise their ceiling potential,
Yeah.
this world would be such a better place. And,
Yeah.
and you know, I'm a capitalist. I know you are. It doesn't mean everybody has to be a capitalist. That's not the point. The point is take pride in what you do. Like take pride in what you do and try and constantly improve. That's it. If you just do those two things, like, wow, you know, now I guess the point is for those that want to do that and they're prepared to earn the life they want to live, it's actually way easier than people think to go build a successful business, because not everybody's prepared to do that. Because a lot of people don't take pride in what they do. So it's out there. It's totally achievable.
Yeah. And your systems are such a big part of that, right? Like, you know, as far as like, if you take a lot of pride in things, then you do try to set up a system around that, right? Like how that comes together, and you're like we're just talking, the checklist is in there, right? We still have a little bit of time. So let's explore this for just a second. You know, you hear often that like, oh, kids are never going to own a house. And it's because the game is stacked against them. I can see why they say that. Does that make sense? Like, because it's
getting harder
a little bit
financially.
Yeah. But the example that I use is like, well, I wanted to be a horse doctor. Okay. I also wanted to live in Southern Iowa where my parents are. That opportunity wasn't there. Does that make sense? Like, so I was like, I remember my dad saying to me, he's like, yeah, I don't feel like you're coming home. I'm like, no, Dad, I'm not. I love Iowa and I love where I grew up, but there's no horses there. So I guess my thought is like, well, if you really want to own a house, probably not going to live downtown Calgary for your first one. Probably going to buy out in Rimbey, Alberta, aren't you? Would that be wrong to go to Rimbey and buy a house there to get started? Only if you thought, oh, I got to have all the perfect balance, and only balance comes from living on 17th Avenue. Okay, well, those are $2 million homes, and you make $60,000, and you're making $60,000 a year. So I don't know, those two things don't match up very well. But if you moved out to Rimbey and bought a house for $200,000, and you know, you get where I'm going. You could argue that any way you want.
But it's true.
Yeah, I think there's always a way to do that. And,
like, sorry, just to expand on that, like I bought my first house when I was like 20 or 21. And could I afford a house? No, but I had the down payment because I elected not to go to university. I elected to get into business right away. So I took the money down payment for a house, but couldn't afford to own the house on my own. So the deal was, if I want to get in the game and own a house at that age and work on it, I had to get 2 roommates. So I had 2 roommates. You know, not that I wanted 2 roommates, but that was the deal. I could not own a house, pay rent, or own a house, have 2 roommates. And I had roommates for my first 2 homes. My first 2 houses, I had 2 roommates each all the time. Was that ideal? No, but sorry, I had roommates in 3 houses actually. So, okay, this is on topic, but my first 2 houses when I was in my early 20s, had 2 roommates each, you know, then got my own place, got married, all that, got divorced, had to give away a lot in the divorce. I'm back to square one, got to buy a house, can't freaking afford to live in it, had to get 2 roommates. And I'm in my 30s, like 2 freaking roommates, but, right?
Yeah.
Had to do it.
So I think that that it's just a matter of what we choose to focus on how it's all going to come together. And it comes back to that thing before of like that old Jim Rohn saying, it's like, well, there's only 2 options here. You're going to find a way or find an excuse, and you just found a way, right? Like, and I think that's what I would like to say to people, because it is important, because you have time on your side and you have energy, right? Whereas at our age, time is not on our side anymore. Hopefully energy is still decent, but time's not on our side anymore, right? Like we're old, not old and dying, but we're, you know, like we're not going to have a 35. I mean, potentially you could, I guess, if you lived to 90, but you know, like if you're in your 20s, you know, you got a big window there, but you got to get started on it. And the longer that you lever that up, the more likely you are to be really successful. Again, you could do it without that too, and whatever, but I just think it's just a matter of like when you're young, it's like, you know, let's get moving and get focused on some targets. And those could be entrepreneurship. And then, you know, like, what am I becoming? What am I building? I've got this beautiful life that I get to design and do whatever. How do I design it to, like, you know, as the Stoics say, to be the best human being and also contribute to the movement of our society? Because I think that's the other thing, when you don't move into entrepreneurship, or you don't have some sort of, if you're just looking for, what's that called? Nihilism? Forget, you know, like if you're just looking to have a nihilistic life of like, I eat bonbons and I sleep with a different woman every night and I live in complete, you know, I don't have any responsibilities and nothing bad ever happens to me. That's nihilism, I think, right? That's not what we're here for, right? Like we're here to be more than that, right? Like, and so I think that's another thing that could be taught is less comfort and more growth, because I mean, unless you guys are luckier than me, it never feels comfortable when I'm growing. It hurts like hell, but like I'm better at coming out the other end. It's like no different than when I was in the gym this morning. I put a 15-pound weight on me because I can now pull my body weight up on pull-ups, right? So in order to make it harder, I was like, well, I could just keep pulling the same body weight, and actually I'm trying to lose weight, so I'm going to lift less. No, how about we add that 15 pounds in? Well, that hurts more, right? But I also know it's going to make me a better person, because it's going to allow me to do more pull-ups and, you know, be more active with my 12-year-old son when I'm almost 60. You know, like it's worth all that sacrifice.
And you can't let him win.
Well, shit, when he's 23, I'll be in my 70s, so it's going to be
you can't let him win though.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the battle then, because I'm sure as hell not going to be in some wheelchair. Yeah, so yeah.
I think to wrap it up, the only thing I would add to what you just said, or kind of, I love what you just said. The only thing I would add on to that is that, you know, if anybody's thinking, well, I don't have the opportunity or whatever it is, I think the point of what you're just saying is start early. Start whenever you can. You're never too late to start. But the earlier you start, you're building experience, and you're building knowledge, and you're building, you know, how to fail at something, which means now you know how to not fail the next time. And you're like, just the earlier you start, the better. And you'll just learn how to succeed. And the really cool thing with business is, and I know this for a fact, you can succeed in a relatively short period of time compared to your life. Like you can start with nothing and be really successful in 5 years. We have a client that it's two young guys. Like, I don't even think they're 30 yet. I don't know if they're 30 yet. Two young guys. And one of them is just like laser freaking focused on getting to a certain point by a certain time with the business. And like, they won business of the year in our program, which is really hard to do because all the businesses in our program perform. They won business of the year, meaning highest profit percent, in their second year of business.
Damn.
It's freaking mind blowing. And they're going to be really hard to beat in 2026. And they're just like, they're just grinding it and laser focused because they have a plan, and that plan is to retire. Like, literally, they're going to be able to retire probably by the time they're 35 years old. And they're just like focused. But, you know, so you know, they can achieve greatness in 5 years, but anybody can achieve it in 10 for sure. And if you really go at it, 5 years. So all the stuff we talked about today, anybody can start at any time. It's never too late. And by the way, if you're a parent, the younger you get your kids thinking this way, like we've talked today, it's the best. It's the absolute best thing you could ever give. The younger you can teach them to do all this, the better chance they have to earn whatever life they want and become whoever they want to become.
Yeah. And that's our number one job once we're a parent, right? Is to see if we can do a good job of raising. Hopefully the next generation is better because of us, right? Not in spite of us, right? Like, that's what I hope.
Just don't send them to the wrong university.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's any university they can go to now, but it'll be what it'll be.
Yeah.
So, well,
it's for real. A couple things before we wrap up. One, how do people in the equine industry, they have a horse, athlete or not, or quite frankly, I think if they have an athletic horse, and even if they're not in your area and they're like, oh, wow, I'd really like to go take my horse there and see what's going on, how do they get a hold of Energy or Synergy Equine?
Yeah, so you can get a hold of us through the normal social media channels, as far as like looking at Facebook or Instagram, and we have those accounts. And then we have a telephone number as well, and a website that comes up, just energyequine.ca, to look at that. If you're in that area, that's the best way to get a hold of us.
Cool. And then you have a podcast going now. So two questions. One, what's the podcast? Like, what's the theme? What's it about? What kind of guests do you have? And two, how do people find that podcast? So
the podcast is called Unbridled and Legendary, and it's interview process where I interview people that I would like to learn from myself, you know, as far as like highly successful trainers, veterinarians, students inside the industry, owners. I did an owner as well, like that, somebody that's a major sponsor, has really brought rodeo along. His name is Lyle Kurtz. He's an incredible individual in business and has done so much for rodeo, like that kind of stuff. So that's where we're at. It's on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. We're going to be launching on YouTube here in the next 2 weeks for that podcast.
Nice.
And
Very
It's
cool.
on excellence, essentially, just excellence with horses. So,
Right.
yeah.
Love it. Very cool. Okay. So Chad, before we wrap up, my phone's hooked on my cord here. Our producer likes to send a couple of questions just for the audience to get to know us. Okay. Question 1. I'll ask you first. What has been your least favorite job to date? Now, after that podcast, you can't say cleaning out the barn.
Boy, that's tough, Greg.
I'm struggling with that one
I
too,
would
actually.
say, yeah, because I've had some. Well, so when I was a kid and I was in vet school and I worked in a factory for Bluebird buses. Like, I don't know if you guys know what Bluebird buses are.
Yeah. I remember.
I don't know if it's still there, but one of their main manufacturing plants where we built them from ground, like pretty much the frame showed up, right? And then they built the bus around them, was in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. And I went to undergraduate at Mount Pleasant at Iowa Wesleyan College. And classic male fashion, I had not found a summer job. And so I ended up, one of my friends is like, you should get a job at Bluebird. And I was like, that sounds terrible. And it literally was like, they were good. There was but it was a classic. You had to clock in with the card, right? The time card. And you had to clock out for your 15-minute break. And you had to clock out for your half hour of lunch. And we were always, like you'd be in the middle of something and then it'd be like, it's your turn to clock out. So then you would leave and somebody else come take your job. And then, like you couldn't work any overtime because, unless they gave it
true shift work.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I would go to work. I think we started at 6 o'clock in the morning. We were done at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever. Yeah. I would say that was my least favorite job because it kind of showed me that was not for me. Right.
Right.
I feel for people that do and that get along with it. And probably the other thing that was a little bit tough about it was there were a lot of unhappy people there too. They were doing this job to work for the man to pay the bill, right? So you can understand why
makes sense.
Understand why people would want a union and all the other shit that comes with socialism. So because of that repetitive nature and cog in a wheel.
Yeah, makes sense. Honestly, mine, I've loved everywhere I've worked. The one that was by far the most frustrating was I helped a company, I'm going to say part-time. Like as I was still coaching, I was working with a company part-time in their office and they had a great concept as far as a great cause, but the whole thing in the podcast say about constant improvement that just wasn't executable. So it drove me freaking bananas. Like I want to stick my head through the wall every day because the constant improvement attitude just wasn't the culture and just I couldn't deal with that. So I only lasted a year doing that and I just couldn't do it. So I would say for me, that was the least enjoyable. Okay. So a second question, what do people misunderstand about you most? I'm not sure. It's probably better somebody else asks this question or answers this question. That's a hard one. What do people misunderstand about you most?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. I think a lot of times that I know for a fact because I have to stop myself, and my intensity is sometimes mistaken as anger because I'm so driven. Right? Like when it comes to certain things, and I actually watch it in our youngest and our son. He gets so focused that he does not like to lose, right? And so he'll get so focused that he will get angry when he loses, right? And I know because that was me, right? Does that make sense? Like I'd be like, and I wasn't always angry at the other person. I was angry sometimes at myself for doing the things that caused the loss, so to speak, right? Like, I think it was the way I learned accountability. And so then whenever we're doing something, and there's some intensity, I can see, like even this morning when there were some things going on, I had to slow down because the technologist was shaking. Her hands were shaking as she was moving because she could feel the intensity coming off of me. And she thought it was anger. And so I was like, uh-oh, time to stop that, Chad. Because usually it ends really shitty. So I just kind of toned it down because it was like eking out of me the intensity of like how excited I was to do this thing, right? And at the same time, I was like, why are you shaking? And it's because they didn't want to fall down in front of me. So which is sad. I don't want to do that to people, but I do every now and then. And so it's just 220 instead of 110. You know what I mean? Like just too much electricity.
Yeah. Makes sense. I totally get it. I can relate with that. I would say for me, something similar. I'm really competitive. I think people who know me well know that, but they might misunderstand where the competitiveness comes from. So I'm going to say two things. One, I think I misunderstood of where the competitiveness comes from, because it's more of just an ultra drive around constant improvement, like trying to always become better.
Mhm.
So like if I go and play pickleball for the first time 2.5 hours, and my whole goal by the end of that 2.5 hours is to be as good as the other guys, and they're all good players. So,
Yeah.
so constant improvement can come across as ultra competitive, which I am ultra competitive, but I think it's more because I'm always trying to improve myself, whatever I'm planning or doing. But then that's contradicts with another part of me, which is I'm always like, I always cheer for the underdog. Like I don't like seeing people getting stepped on, but those people getting stepped on have to fight for themselves. They gotta
Step up.
yeah, you got to step up. So I'll fight. So I'm super competitive. So people would never think I'm also want the person not succeeding to do well, but they got to step up. It's not like you don't just, it doesn't get given to you, which is kind of opposite of being competitive. So it's a weird mix.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I could see the dichotomy of where that could be misunderstood.
Yeah, totally. For sure. Yeah. Everybody always thinks I'll just step on the little guy because I'm competitive, but it's not true. I want to see the little guy succeed, just not going to let him beat me.
Yeah. Or they're going to have to try. Yeah. They're going to have to try.
Exactly. They got to earn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What's that? Oh, it's a bonus question. Okay, so apparently we have a bonus question, a third one. What is your suggestion to someone who is in that funk of not care or not passionate about what they do? How do they get out of that funk? That's a good question.
Okay, well, I'm going to share this because it's going to seem kind of weird. And I think one of the things that for me, like that kept it sort of, consistent, right? Because I think we're all looking for inspiration, right? And I can tell you for sure, when the alarm went off at 5 o'clock or a little before 5, when Nance got out of bed, I was not inspired today. I was like, I do not want to go out. First of all, I don't want to step in that cold shower for 2 minutes. I do not. I was like, I don't want to do that this morning. And I don't want to go out to the gym. I'm tired. I'm hungry. And, like, it was just like one of those things. So I think one of the things for the funk for people is you need to get a system or something in place that causes consistency to be there, because this morning it's like I was not inspired, right, to be out there. And I think that's one of the things that ends up feeding the wrong monster is like, I'll do that when I feel like it. Well, that could be a pretty cold day in hell. So the thing is how do I do the things I don't want to do every single day? And I think that's a routine. So I say to our young people all the time, are you a good eater? And they're like, well, what's a good eater? I'm like, real food and consistent. And you'll see them shy away from me. I'm like, it's just super straight up, right? Are you eating real food? And are you consistent with it? If you eat good, like people like, oh, I'll have a salad so I can have chicken wings or I don't know, whatever, like they're basically they're looking to like cheat on the consistency. That's not wrong. But at the same time, it's like, what's the 4 things that are going to happen every day? These 4 things are happening first thing in the morning. And a part of that is a little bit of priming. I'm really into priming, which is like, are you setting yourself up to see the bad things or are you setting yourself up to see the good things? I wish I would have came to that a long time ago, but it's all that consistency of getting up in the morning, because this morning I was not seeing the good things. But by the time I got through the 4 things that force, I don't like the word force, but like they're just habits. It's like one of them's brushing my teeth. The other one's going to the gym. One's a journal, and the other one's 15 minutes of Tony Robbins priming. And you could use, it doesn't have to be that, but something where you have that, you're just going to do those no matter how you feel. And I think once you do that, then you can get out of the funk. But you got to be willing to do the 4 things. And they're not my 4 things. They can be whatever your 4 things are, I think.
Right.
They have to be that to start. And you got to consistently write down, do I do those? That's how I would advise somebody to get out of a funk now.
I love it. I'm going to say I'd say in my life, there'd be 3 and you named 2 of them. Routine. So system, whatever you want to call it. Totally agree with that. Second thing, and it's what you said. I'm just going to use different words, but it's the same concept, but constant improvement. If you're always looking for how do I make that thing better, then your brain's focused, and it doesn't matter where you're at, right? Like it doesn't matter where your starting point is. If you're trying to make it better, then you're always focused on that, which then stops you from focusing on the funk, the why it didn't work, or the what's in the way, or why it might not work, or you can't think about that when you're thinking about constant improvement. It takes your brain right off it. So I think we're saying the same thing in those 2. And then the third thing I would add for me is know the end goal. that end goal might change, right? That destination may change. It may keep evolving. But know, what am I trying to achieve? Where am I trying to get to? And that's what brings the drive. Because I'm a big commitment over motivation person. So if I know where I'm trying to get to, I'm committed. I'll run through brick walls to get there. If I'm just motivated, then like if I don't really know where I'm trying to get to, I got an idea that, I want to get sort of over there. Then as I have a bad day, my results go down because I'm like focused on the bad day. And then if I have a good day, this is good. And then a bad day, your motivation goes up and down with results. So to get away from that, know where you're trying to get to with clarity. And I think that's the point. I always know where I'm trying to get to with clarity. Like I know I want to score this many goals or get this many points or get to this revenue number, hit this profit number, this average transaction, or like know the number, know the destination, and then you're committed. Awesome, buddy. Appreciate it. Thank you. Great podcast.
Yeah.
Always love having you, and we'll definitely have you back soon. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's always great to sit down.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the More Profit, Less Stress podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform and leave a comment or review as it helps with the algorithm. To learn more about us and what we do, check out our website. Until next time, go make it happen.